Chapter 57:17 No wife, no husband. No husband. Hearing the message of Hei Shinjio in the voice transmission note, the corner of his eye twitched for a moment. I'm afraid the last sentence is the key, right? He smiled a little. Well, the mission should be temporarily cancelled. On the other side, Hei Shinjio laughed sinisterly and replied, Brother Beiyu, don't be disappointed. It's good to cultivate in the academy. Just as she was feeling proud, Lecturer Ouyang caught sight of her. Lecturer Ouyang saw the sinister smile on her face and immediately frowned. Yan Qingqing, what are you laughing at? Do you think something is wrong with what I said? Don't you know the immensity of heaven and earth because you can move your claws? Come up and let your claws out. Hey Shinjio. This fellow cursed silently in her heart. Can't she talk about her spiritual beast? Must she talk about her claws? She didn't have that kind of thing. Even though she cursed, this fellow still dawdled up to the podium and let out her red claws. Then Hei Shinjio was stunned. Lecturer Ouyang and the others were also stunned. They saw that the red claws had actually materialized another toe. Wasn't the materialization speed too heaven-defying? Didn't it materialize 2 toes just a few days ago? In just a few short days it had materialized another toe? Just as everyone was astonished, the remaining 2 toes had also rapidly materialized. After a moment of dead silence, Hei Shinjio said happily, Lecturer, how is it? I told you that my claw is extraordinary. The materialization speed can be said to be unprecedented, right? I believe that it won't be long before this claw of mine will become famous throughout the entire divine enlightenment continent and become a legend of a generation. I've decided to call it the invincible and heaven-defying big red claw from now on. What do you think? Lecturer Ouyang took a deep breath. Although the combat power will be much stronger after materialization, it will also vary according to the beast. This is just a claw of yours. Even if it materializes completely, it won't have as much potential as other spirit beasts. Arrogance is the most taboo in the path of cultivation. Take care of yourself. Go down. Hei Shinjio pursed her lips in her heart. Not have as much potential as other spirit beasts? She was a 10,000-year-old single pig. Although she did not know why she only had 1 claw now, it would definitely be awesome in the future. Just as this fellow was cursing in his heart, that red claw was charging towards her at lightning speed. Hei Shinjio was hit by the claw and immediately became furious. She didn't scold it this time. Could it be that she couldn't do it even if she thought about it? Udamas, you're a 10,000-year-old single claw. You're destined to be alone for Eve. You're a single dog. You deserve to be a bachelor for your whole life. You don't know how to show mercy to the fairer sex. The red claw was so angry that it was shivering. It crashed toward Yun Chujio again. Hei Shinjio immediately took out little slut number 1 and slashed at the red claw. You want to kill your master? Do you want to die? If I don't beat you to death today, my name will not be Yan Qingqing. Ding Wenru thought to herself, your name is not Yan Qingqing in the first place. Seeing that it could not take advantage of her, the red claw hooked its toes at Hei Shinjio and ran out of the Hall of Dharma. Hei Shinjio chased after her with the sword in her hand. You damned claw. Stop right there. I don't think you're the invincible, heaven-defying red claw at all. You're the lone claw of a man without a wife. The red claw suddenly stopped flying and turned around to crash into Hei Shinjio. Hei Shinjio quickly swung her sword to slash at it, but the red claw avoided it at a tricky angle. Chapter 57:18 Hair pulling after the red claw dodged Yun Chujia's sword, it pounced on Hei Xinjia's head. Then, it began to pull Hei Xinjia's hair, pulling it down one by one. Hei Shinjio was about to explode when she saw the falling hair. Do you want to die? You're a 10,000-year-old single claw. You can't find a wife and you want to make me bald. You're shameless. However, the red claw was lying on Hei Xinjia's head. Even if Hei Shinjio wanted to attack it, it would not be easy. It might even injure itself. Lecturer Ouyang and the others were dumbfounded. Oh God, were these 2 pets or enemies? Why was their hair pulled? The Goebatsao in Hei Xinjia's dantian shook its leaves. TSK, didn't it always talk about that stupid pig in the past? Great, now you know who is her little cutie, right? Although it would occasionally occupy the magpie's nest, at least it didn't know how to pull its hair. Compared to this stupid pig, it was simply an obedient baby. Hei Xinjiu was so angry that she was twitching. She had no choice but to ask Lecturer Ouyang for help. Lecturer Ouyang, don't just watch. Quickly get rid of this damn claw. Otherwise, it'll become bald. Lecturer Ouyang was both angry and amused. He struck the red claw with his palm, and only then did the red claw disappear. Hei Xinjiu looked at the hair on the ground in heartache, took out a mirror and looked at it. She gnashed her teeth and said, "My peerless beauty has been ruined by that damn claw." The guy had wanted to say that it was the 10,000-year-old single claw, but he swallowed his words. A wise man would never be at a disadvantage in front of his eyes. That damn claw was a bit weird, so it was better not to provoke it for the time being. Didn't you say that your spiritual beast was invincible in the world? Why did it pull your hair? Lecturer Ouyang glared fiercely at Hei Xinjiu. A good spiritual beast tide did not ruin a good lesson, but it was ruined by this Yan Qingqing. Yun Chujio said embarrassedly, "Lecturer Ouyang, every powerful thing has a little temper. This claw of mine is no exception. I will think of a way to make it obedient." Lecturer Ouyang snorted coldly and punished Yun Chujio to clean the Hall of Dharma for 3 days. Other than that, he did not say anything else. Because he also felt that this red claw seemed to be a little unusual. Putting aside the speed of materialization, just the flexibility of the fight with Yan Qingqing just now had surpassed many spirit beasts. Perhaps it was really not simple. Moreover, the beast tide had not completely subsided. He was also a little worried and wanted to leave the lower house to take a look. After the crowd dispersed, Ding Wenru and the other two accompanied Hei Xinjiu back to the training hall to clean up. Ding Wenru moved closer to Hei Xinjiu and asked softly, "Qingqing, if I remember correctly, today is the day Beiyu and the others went on a mission, right? Now that there's a beast tide, they definitely won't be able to go. Even the heavens are helping you." Hei Xinjiu bared her little white teeth. "That's right. Tian Dao likes me the most. I told him to head east, but he didn't dare head west. I told him to beat up dogs, but he didn't dare to chase chickens." Ding Wenru. She was talking about this guy who could shine under the sun. She didn't link the beast tide incident to Hei Xinjiu. After all, it was too unbelievable and was beyond her understanding. After Hei Xinjiu finished cleaning, she didn't return to the dormitory. Instead, she ran to the self-examination workshop. Her hair wasn't white. If she didn't let the red claws kneel down and kowtow to her today, her name wouldn't be Yan Qingqing. Chapter 57:19, You Have to Face Reality. Ever since Hei Xinjiu became the leader of the Fire Elements Law Enforcement Team, there were basically no more students who were punished to boil salt. The self-examination square had already become Hei Xinjiu's private venue. Everyone was furious but did not dare to voice their anger. This was because once someone raised an objection, Hei Xinjiu would find an excuse to punish them and come into boil salt. Who would find trouble for themselves. Therefore, no one mentioned this matter anymore. Hei Xinjiu entered the self-examination workshop, closed the door, and went into the house that boiled salt. After closing the door, she took out the mirror and looked at it. She cursed in her heart. Fortunately, her hair was thicker. Otherwise, she would definitely be scratched until she was bald by De Hua's damn claws. Thinking of this, the guy suddenly became angry. He put up the spiritual energy barrier and released his red claws. The red claws trembled and hooked their toes at Hei Xinjiu, looking very smug. Hei Xinjiu narrowed her eyes and snorted, "De Hua, well done. You are quite promising, aren't you? You dare to go against me, aren't you? You even dare to pull my hair. You really want to die, don't you?" The red claw shook indifferently and snapped its fingers with 2 toes. Yun Chujio was furious. This shameless single pig actually snapped his fingers? He really deserved a beating. The red claw may have sensed Hei Xinjiu's thoughts, and the word single pig angered it again. It immediately rushed towards Hei Xinjiu's spiritual energy shield. Hei Xinjiu came prepared this time. The red claw could not break the spiritual energy shield even after a few hits. Hei Xinjiu sneered, "De Hua, no wonder you transformed into a pig before. You are really a pig brain. You are going against me. You don't want to think about it, do you? The red claw stopped moving, as if waiting for Hei Shinjio to continue. Although I don't know why you turned into a claw, it's obvious that you have to rely on me if you want to obtain all of your body. You also know that apart from you, I have Goei Batsao. Its combat ability is at least 100 times stronger than your current ghastly appearance. Moreover, it's obedient. I can totally not let you out. When the Goei Batsao in her dantian heard Hei Xinjia's praise, it almost flew away. Did you see that? Did you see that? The road was far, but the horsepower was far away. As time went by, she finally knew who her little cutie was. Yun Chujio continued, if I don't let you out, let's not talk about whether you can condense a physical body or not. Even if you can, you will never see the lie. Moreover, was I wrong in scolding you? Aren't you the one who has been single for 10,000 years? Aren't you the one who has no wife? Man, no, beast, you have to face reality. You are single now, and you don't have a wife. Don't you allow others to say that. You have to learn from other fierce beasts. Look at Buttface. The majestic fierce beast transformed into a puppy. Isn't he also carefree and happy? Look at Hun Dun. Isn't he happy wearing a green sweater all day? Your mental endurance is too weak. If you don't have a wife, just find a wife. Why are you in such a hurry with me? Am I the reason why you can't get a wife? When Yun Chujio said this, she strangely felt a strong resentment coming from her spiritual sense. This fellow touched his nose guiltily. Could it really be related to her? Was it the sins of her previous life again? Chapter 5720 was an honor. Hei Shinjio laughed dryly. Well, let's turn the page first. In the future, as long as you are obedient, I want poke at your sore spot. How about that? The red claw did not respond. It was unknown whether it would agree or not. Hei Shinjio took it as a yes. After all, from what she knew of her great achievements in her previous life, it was very likely that she had really done something immoral. It was better not to continue this conversation. This fellow scattered the red claws with one palm and then left the self-examination square. This time, she only let the Goei Batsao emit a short fragrance. Therefore, the beast tide was not large, and the sea beasts quickly withdrew. Even so, for the sake of insurance, the 10 Directions Academy still issued a ban. For a short period of time, they were not allowed to leave the island. Hei Shinjio was delighted. At least for the time being, she did not have to worry about the cabbages being eaten by pigs. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. What Hei Shinjio released was still the red claw. The difference was that the upper part of the red claw had solidified. If one did not know that this was Hei Xinjia's spiritual beast, one would think that it was really a claw. However, no one had ever seen a similar spiritual beast claw. What kind of claw was this? Lecturer Ouyang did not mention Yun Chujia's disqualification if she could not release the entire spiritual beast, because he vaguely felt that Yun Chujia's claw was somewhat unusual. Seeing that Lecturer Ouyang did not mention it, Hei Shinjio was naturally happy to play dumb. She felt that the old man, Lecturer Ouyang, was not bad. What this fellow was worried about now was how to enter the upper house directly after the big examination. If he entered the middle house, wouldn't that waste at least half a year's time? What if the cabbage was eaten by pigs during this half a year's time? Thus, this fellow jumped into President He's study. President, I want to enter the upper house. Do you have any ideas? President He looked at her speechlessly. This little girl was talking nonsense, right? Enter the upper house? With her aptitude, it would be good enough if she didn't get expelled. Enter the upper house? How dare she think about it? Yen Qingqing, you must be steadfast in your cultivation. Don't overestimate yourself and don't let your imagination run wild. Do you understand? President, he said with a gloomy face. Hei Shinjio nodded with a smile. President, you have to have a dream. What if it comes true? Forget it. I guess you are the president of the lower house and don't know much about the upper house. I'd better ask someone else. President, he immediately snorted. I don't know. What can the 10 Directions Academy hide from me? If you wanted to enter the upper house directly from the lower house, it was not impossible. Bayu was an example. If you were able to obtain first place in the exam and obtain more than 1,000 points compared to the second place, you would be able to enter the upper house directly. I advise you to give up on this idea. Yu is extremely talented and cannot be compared to ordinary people. I heard that although Yu is a new student, his cultivation has improved very quickly. He has already crushed most of the students from the spiritual energy department. Yun Chujio did not get angry when she heard this. Instead, she nodded with pride. That's true. Why don't you take a look at whose sweetheart he is? My Yen Qingcheng's sweetheart is naturally the most outstanding. President He had forgotten about this. Yes, good cabbage had been taken by this little girl. This little girl probably wanted to enter the upper academy because she wanted to be together with Yu. However, this was too unrealistic. It was simply wishful thinking. Chapter 57-21 Examination. President He, if I score 1,000 points higher than the second place, can I really enter the upper academy? Are you not lying to me? Hei Shinjio blinked her eyes and asked. Of course it's true. This has always been the rule of the academy. However, before Yu, almost no one could do it. After all, the students in the academy are all favored by the heavens. It's very difficult for there to be such a big difference. Yen Qingqing, although your talent is not good, as long as you work hard, you should not be eliminated in this exam. Don't think about irrelevant things, understand? President He advised earnestly. He did not like Yun Chujio before, but after experiencing some things, especially when Sect Master Yuan told him about the heroic deeds of Yun Chujio who risked her own safety to save others in the Thunder Valley, his view of her had changed. Yun Chujio nodded obediently. President, I understand. I will definitely not let you down. I will amaze everyone during the big exam and become the second person to enter the upper house directly from the lower house. President He did not bother to waste his breath on her and directly chased her out of the study room. This little girl who did not know her limits would naturally know how powerful she was when the big exam came. Soon, the 10 Directions Academy ushered in the big exam that was held once every 6 months. The big exam of the 10 Directions Academy was not divided into grades. Instead, all the students participated in the exam together. Out of more than 10,000 students, only the top 1,000 were qualified to enter the middle school. In the big exam, the last 100 students would be expelled. Therefore, the big exam was an extremely important event for every student. The location of the big exam was set above the 1 Yuan Waterside Pavilion of the 10 Directions Academy. The 10 Directions Academy had 6 waterside pavilions specially used for the exam. They were the 1 Yuan Waterside Pavilion, the 2 Elements Waterside Pavilion, the 3 Talents Waterside Pavilion, the 4 Symbols Waterside Pavilion, the 5 Elements Waterside Pavilion, and the 6 Harmonies Waterside Pavilion. The 1 Yuan Waterside Pavilion was the least difficult waterside pavilion for the exam. The higher one went, the more difficult it would be. The rules of the exam were simple and crude. In the 1 Yuan Waterside Pavilion, there were all kinds of small flags representing points. The final result was calculated according to the small flag points each person received. In the assessment, the use of talismans, the prohibition of flying, and the prohibition of snatching were all prohibited. In fact, even snatching was useless, because the small flags would only show the name of the first person to receive it. After President He explained the rules, he opened the assessment enchantment of the 1 Yuan Waterside Pavilion and teleported everyone inside. Before Hei Shinjio entered, she was still proudly blinking her eyes at President He. President He glared at her and ignored her. He thought to himself, other students had basically made a breakthrough in the past 6 months, but this Yen Qingqing was still a good-for-nothing at the 9th level of Spirit Extinguisher realm. It was already a blessing that she was not ranked in the bottom 100 in this exam. She still had the wishful thinking to enter the upper house? Dream on. Everyone was transported to different locations. However, due to the large number of people participating in the exam, there were some students who were very close to each other. For example, Ding Wenru and Yun Chujio. Ding Wenru saw Hei Shinjio, who was not far away and was almost going crazy with joy. She had already summed up a famous saying. As long as she clung tightly to this fiend's thigh, Anything was possible. The moment Ding Wenru thought that she might be able to enter the middle courtyard under He Xinjia's light, she felt like she was floating. Immediately, she ran towards Yun Chujia's location. Qingqing, that's great. PM actually so close to you. Looks like I can safely enter the central courtyard this time. When that time comes, we can be together again. Chapter 5722 How could she live? Yun Chujio glanced at Ding Wenru. We can't be together anymore. Ding Wenru was stunned at first, then said anxiously, Qingqing, why do you say that? How did I offend you? Don't you want to protect me? Yun Chujio bared her little white teeth. I'm going to enter the upper house this time. You can only enter the middle house at most, so we can't be together anymore. Ding Wenru's eyes widened. You want to enter the upper house? Didn't you say that the top 1,000 in the lower house assessment can only enter the middle house? How are you going to enter the upper house? President, he told me that as long as I get first place and am 1,000 points higher than the second place, I can enter the upper house directly, Yun Chujio explained. Ding Wenru felt like she was struck by lightning when she heard that. If it wasn't for Qingqing, how could she live? If she didn't have Qingqing by her side, she would be courting death if she entered the central courtyard. She might as well stay in the lower house. However, she knew that there was nothing she could do about it. She couldn't let her lover not reunite with her, right? The more Ding Wenru thought about it, the less confident she was in the future. It was as if she could already see the abyss of suffering in the future. She didn't want to live anymore. Suddenly, Ding Wenru's eyes lit up. Qingqing, I'm your biological sister? Hey Xinjiao. Ding Wenru said excitedly, didn't President he say that as long as you are first place, you can enter the upper house as long as you are 1,000 points higher than second place? Then we can tie for first place. This way we can enter the upper house together. Although I'm not very capable, I can still run errands for you and help you spread the word. If not, I can help you keep an eye on those coquettish bitches so that they won't covet your big brother Beiyu. Hey Xinjiao. Ding Wenru had never felt so smart before. She listed her strengths without stopping. In her opinion, it did not matter where she was, as long as she hugged Qingqing's thigh tightly. A few years later, the high and mighty Ding Wenru said to her juniors with a profound expression, the most correct thing in my life is to cling onto the right thigh. Of course, this was all in the future. At this moment, she looked pitifully at He Xinjiao and forced a pitiful expression on the tomboy's face. When you enter the upper house, your cultivation will definitely be at the bottom. When that time comes, there will inevitably be a lot of sarcasm and ridicule. You might even be expelled during the assessment. Are you sure you want to do this? Yun Chujio asked seriously. As long as I can follow you, nothing will be a problem. Even if I am expelled in the end, I will accept it, Ding Wenru said firmly. Hey. Alright, then I will try my best. But if I don't get enough points in the end, I will be powerless. Ding Wenru immediately nodded as if she was pounding garlic. Alright. Let's get your points first. When your points are enough, you can help me earn more points. I'm not in a hurry. Yun Chujio looked up at the sky speechlessly. For some reason, she felt that Ding Wenru was very similar to Buttface at this moment. She was just missing a tail. After the two of them finished their discussion, they began to look for the small flag. Yun Chujio had previously asked others about it. Although the grand examination was held in the 1 yuan water pavilion, the content and rules of the examination were different each time. Therefore, there was no experience to follow. They could only take one step at a time. They are now in a valley. It does not look like there is any danger, of course, did not see the so-called small flag. Chapter 5723, The Little Red Flag, Qingqing, what kind of tricks do you think the Academy will come up with to test us? Ding Wenru asked curiously. Who knows? It's nothing more than demonic beasts or formations. Let's wait and see, Yun Chujio said as she looked around. At this moment, Ding Wenru pointed to the front and said, Flag. Flag. Yun Chujio looked in the direction that Ding Wenru pointed and saw a small red flag in the distance. The small flag in the assessment was divided into 7 colors. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. The red flag had the lowest points and was also the easiest to get. On the contrary, the purple flag had the highest points and was also very difficult to get. Yun Chujio glanced at the small red flag and said with a lack of interest, "It's just a small red flag. Why are you so excited?" "Ching ching, this mosquito leg is also meat. Let's put it away," Ding Wenru said excitedly. She felt that her decision was right. As long as she followed Ching Ching, her luck was better than others. She found a flag so quickly. Ding Wenru took 2 steps in 3 steps and hurriedly ran toward the small red flag. However, just as she was about to get close to the small red flag, countless sharp vines emerged from the ground and crazily attacked her. Ding Wenru was shocked. She hurriedly raised her spiritual energy barrier and retreated a distance. Those vines should have an attack range. After reaching a certain distance, they would no longer spread. However, since it was a test, it was naturally difficult. It was impossible for the students to easily get their hands on the flag. Ding Wenru released her spiritual fire leopard. "Ching Ching, let's go together." Hei Xinjiu touched her chin. She didn't know if the process of the test would be monitored. It was better for her to be cautious and not give herself away. Therefore, she said to Ding Wenru, "Sister Ding, I'm a little tired. You go alone." Ding Wenru. What happened to the thigh? What happened to holding hands and entering the upper house? Ding Wenru cursed in her heart, but she still directed her spiritual fire leopard to attack the vines. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes and watched from the side. The difficulty of the red flag was the lowest. Even if Ding Wenru's cultivation level was only at the 3rd layer of the divine revelation realm, she could still succeed after spending some time. Sure enough, Ding Wenru spent nearly 2 hours to finally remove all the vines and successfully obtained the small red flag. Yun Chujio took the small red flag and looked at it curiously. Ding Wenru's name had already appeared on it. It was very magical. She returned the flag to Ding Wenru and the 2 of them continued to walk forward. "I think it's already good enough if we don't get eliminated," Ding Wenru said somewhat dispiritedly. Yun Chujio pointed at her own head. "Sister Ding, spiritual power is not enough to gather intelligence. I'm definitely going to take first place." Ding Wenru was skeptical, but she had already boarded the pirate ship, so she could only place her hopes on Hei Xinjia's head. The 2 chatted as they walked, and soon, they found a small red flag. Apparently, there were a lot of small red flags. Ding Wenru learned her lesson this time. She first released the spiritual fire leopard to test it out. The moment the spiritual fire leopard approached the small red flag, countless wind blades shot out from the small red flag. The spiritual fire leopard was quickly dispersed. Chapter 5724 was so poor that only money was left. "Ching Ching, you can't just sit by and do nothing this time. You have to come with me. Otherwise, it will be too much of a waste of time," Ding Wenru said. Yun Chujio said lazily, "Actually, if you want me to say it, you might as well give up this flag. As long as you listen to me, you will soon have many flags." Ding Wenru was so angry that she was amused. "Ching Ching, I admit that you're smart, but aren't you being a little arrogant? Tell me, how can you let me have so many flags?" Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. "You don't believe me? Then come with me." Ding Wenru saw that Yun Chujio sounded very serious, so she simply gave up on the red flag. She wanted to see how Yun Chujio would let her have so many flags. After the 2 of them walked for a while, Ding Wenru urged, "Ching Ching, where's the flag we agreed on? Where is it? What's the rush? I have to meet someone first." Ding Wenru suddenly stopped in her tracks and widened her eyes. "Ching Ching, you're not allowed to rob during the assessment. Besides, even if you did, the name on the flag wouldn't be the 2 of us. Are you confused?" Yun Chujio smiled but didn't say anything. Ding Wenru gritted her teeth. She wanted to see what kind of tricks she had up her sleeves. Needless to say, the 2 of them soon met the 2 official students of the Raging Fire Department. The 2 of them were working together to attack the vines. Their target was a small red flag. "Seniors, stop first. I have something important to tell you," Yun Chujio shouted at the top of her voice. The 2 students didn't understand, but they still stopped and looked at Yun Chujio. "What is it?" Yun Chujio said pitifully, "Seniors, you know that PM a good for nothing. If I was ranked in the bottom 100 this time, I would definitely be expelled. I thought about it, I can only buy a few flags. So I plan to buy the flag that you attacked." The two students were a little confused. "What do you mean? What do you mean by buying the flag that we attacked? After you destroy the vines, don't take the flag. Let me take it, and I'll pay you 2,000 high-grade spirit stones each." Based on the strength of the two of you, this little red flag was only dispensable. Selling it to me wouldn't be a loss for you. What do you think? The two students looked at each other. The points of the little red flag were very little. It was indeed dispensable to them. If they could exchange it for 2,000 spiritual stones, it would not be a loss. Thus, the two of them nodded in agreement. 15 minutes later, Hei Shinjio happily obtained a little red flag. The price was 4,000 upper-grade spiritual stones. Ding Wenru was both stunned and shocked. After the two students left, she said, "Qingqing, don't tell me you want to win first place by buying a flag?" Yun Chujio nodded very seriously. "Congratulations, you got it right." Ding Wenru. "Qingqing, your method definitely won't work. Don't look at how those two people agreed to sell you the flag just now. The others might not agree. Moreover, if you want our points to be tied for first place, you have to surpass the second place by 1,000 points. How many spirit stones do you need? Can you afford it? Since the two of them agree, others will also agree. Because the little red or orange flags are not valuable, it won't affect their grades. They will be very happy to sell it to me. Don't forget, only the top 1,000 students can enter the middle court. The vast majority of students are ranked in the top 1,001 place. There is no essential difference. Why don't they change the flags into money? As for money, I am so poor that only money is left." Chapter 5725 Buying a Flag. Ding Wenru was dumbfounded when she heard Yun Chujio's words. She felt that her worldview had been refreshed. How could she still play like this? Buy a flag to enter the upper house with spirit stones? She thought carefully and realized that Yun Chujio's words really made sense. For many students, since they had no hope of entering the middle house, why didn't they exchange the flag for spirit stones? With spirit stones, they could have better cultivation resources. It was many times better than the ranking with no practical use. But could it really work? Ding Wenru's doubts were quickly dispelled. Because in the next few days, unless it was a student who had the ambition to break into the top 1,000, the rest of the students readily agreed. It would be a fool not to earn money. Some students even asked her and Yun Chujio to follow them so that they could sell more flags to them. Hence, Yun Chujio came up with a new idea. She organized more and more people to gather together. Every time they saw a flag, they would sell it to Yun Chujio. After that, they would split the spirit stones equally. However, as Yun Chujio got more and more flags, some students began to feel a little unbalanced. If Yen Qingqing got so many flags, wouldn't she be able to enter the middle school? Hei Shinjio had already anticipated such a situation. She did not hold back and went straight to the point. "I know what you are thinking. You simply think that I can enter the central courtyard by relying on your flags, while you can only stay in the lower house. Your hearts are not balanced. However, don't forget that even if you don't sell me your flags, you will not be able to enter the central courtyard. Moreover, I didn't ask for your flags for nothing. I paid a huge amount of spirit stones. This is all the hard-earned money that I worked hard to earn." After being beaten up by her, the crowd had gotten rid of their unbalanced thoughts. Besides, they felt that Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru were asking for it when they entered the central courtyard. With their level of trash, they would be expelled sooner or later. On the way, Yun Chujio met Qin Linglong and Ding Wenru. She secretly told them about her and Ding Wenru's plans and asked for their opinions. Since they were friends, they would naturally not favor one over the other. If they were willing, Yun Chujio would also agree to let the two of them become equal first. After all, the business was going smoothly. However, they did not expect that Qin Linglong and Gu Lianyi would reject Yun Chujio's proposal. "Qingqing, thank you for your good intentions, but we know our own limits. Let alone the upper house, even the middle house might not be able to. Qin Linglong said. The purpose of entering the 10 Directions Academy was to cultivate well, so it was more important to choose a suitable place and not to aim too high. Everyone had their own aspirations, so they naturally couldn't force it. Yun Chujio respected their choice. Moreover, Yun Chujio felt that what they said made sense. In fact, if Ding Wenru had not shamelessly insisted on going with her, she would have also wanted her to stay in the lower house. Yun Chujio's business was in full swing, and many people were extremely envious, such as Fan Chi. He had long hated Yun Chujio to the bone, but he had no way to take revenge. Now that he saw that Yun Chujio actually wanted to use the method of buying flags to enter the middle house, he sneered in his heart. This Yen Qingqing was really daydreaming. She actually wanted to rely on this method to enter the middle house? Wishful thinking. When he got out, he would expose her cheating behavior to the principal and make her come up empty-handed. Chapter 57:26. They cheated. When the exam was about to end, He Xinjiao and Ding Wenru began to count their flags. They destroyed the extra flags to ensure that their points would be the same. Ding Wenru was so happy that she was about to fly. She swore that she would hold onto Yun Chujio's golden legs for the rest of her life. Just as she was bubbling with joy, Yun Chujio handed her a piece of paper. Sign your name and press your fingerprint. Ding Wenru looked at the dazzling amount of debt on it and felt that she would never be able to pay it off in this lifetime. Well, she still hadn't paid off the sponsorship fees from last time. She said with a bitter face, Qingqing, why don't you just give me a contract to sell your body? It'll be yours from now on. Yun Chujio glanced at her and said indifferently, what I lack is not a servant but a friend. Ding Wenru's originally laughing expression suddenly froze. After a long while, she said word by word, good. From now on, we will be friends through life and death. Although I, Ding Wenru, am stupid, at the very least, I still have a life. If there is a time when I can be of use, I will protect you with my life. Yun Chujio stretched out her hand, and Ding Wenru also stretched out her hand. The two of them high-fived each other. From now on, they would live and die together. They would advance and retreat together, taking care of each other with courage. Finally, it was time for the grand examination to end. Everyone was teleported outside the boundary. President He and the others were already waiting outside. Furthermore, there was a lecturer who specialized in counting flags. There was no need to count them one by one. As long as the flags were placed on a specific formation plate, the points would be displayed. The students began to scramble to hand over the flags. However, Yun Chujio was leisurely watching from behind. Only when the show came to an end would it be shocking. Only the top 1,000 names were displayed on the shadow stone. As more and more points kept appearing, the list of names was also changing at any time. President He saw that Yun Chujio had not come forward to verify her points. He thought that this little girl who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth was probably afraid of losing face, which was why she had not verified her points. Could it be that her points were pitifully low and she would be expelled? Just as President He was thinking about it, Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru walked up to the two lecturers respectively and poured the flags in their storage rings onto the formation disc. The lecturers were all dumbfounded. Why were there so many? Although they were all red, orange, and yellow flags with low points, they could not withstand the large number. President He was also stunned. Yun Chujio and her lack. How was this possible? When the numbers on the shadow stone were displayed, President He staggered. Yen Qingqing, 18,888 points. Ding Wenru, 18,888 points. The candidate who was pushed to third place, the pitiful 5,000 points behind his name, seemed like a joke. The entire venue was dead silent. Such a situation had never happened before. This was too unbelievable. Yun Chujio walked in front of President He with a smile. President He, I told you I would amaze everyone, right? Do you think that Ding Wenru and I have fulfilled the conditions to enter the upper house? The first thought that flashed through President He's mind was, did something go wrong when they planted the flag? So they picked up a loophole? However, no matter what the reason was, the result was already here. He could not deny what he had said. Moreover, the academy did have such a rule. At this moment, Fan Chi said loudly, "President, Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru are cheating." Chapter 57:27, How could it be wrong? President He's gaze froze as he looked at Fan Chi. What's going on? These flags were purchased by Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru with spirit stones. They weren't obtained by their own strength at all. President He, please investigate. Fan Chi immediately brought up the matter of Yun Chujio buying the flags. After saying that, he looked at Yun Chujio with a cold smile. He wanted to enter the upper house? Dream on. President He and the other lecturers were dumbstruck. Oh God, they could still play like this? Were the previous students too honest, or were Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru too treacherous? After recovering from his shock, President He's face darkened. Yan Qingqing, Ding Wenru, what do you have to say? Ding Wenru hated Fan Chi to death. She wished she could go up and slap him to death. It's over, I'm afraid I won't be able to go to the upper academy anymore. The spirit stones that could topple cities would also go down the drain. However, there was not the slightest trace of panic on Yun Chujio's face. There was even a faint smile on her face. President, I admit that those flags were indeed bought by me with spirit stones. President He immediately flew into a rage. Nonsense! How can the grand examination be child's play? The results of the two of you are invalid. President, please don't be angry. Let me finish my words. Yun Chujio said calmly. President He glared at her. What else do you have to say? This is outrageous. You are violating the rules of the academy. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. President, which rule says that you are not allowed to exchange spirit stones for flags? President He went through the rules of the academy, but there was really no such rule. Besides this guy in front of him, no one else would come up with such a bad idea. Naturally, there was no relevant rule. Hei Shinjio continued, is there no such rule? Since there is no such rule, what's wrong with me doing this? I earned those spirit stones with my strength, and I used the spirit stones earned with my strength to exchange for flags. In this way, didn't I exchange for flags with my strength? Moreover, even if we were to go and snatch the treasure after graduation in the future, wouldn't it count if I used the spirit stones to hire people to help me search for the treasure? Moreover, I did this in order to give you a reminder. In the future, when you take the examination again, you can add this clause to prevent others from taking advantage of this loophole. I have put in a lot of effort. President He. This Yan Qingqing really had a sharp tongue. Even if she was dead, she could still be said to be alive. Black could also be said to be white. It was clearly a cheating act of stealing a trick, but she had forcefully said that she had put in a lot of effort. She was really shameless. However, regardless of whether it was the rules that had been announced previously or the rules of the 10 Directions Academy, there was no such rule. However, letting the two of them enter the upper house just like that was too easy for them. Moreover, what would the other students think? What would the teachers and students of the upper house think? This was simply a joke. After weighing the pros and cons, President He said, we will discuss this matter later. Regardless of whether Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru will enter the upper house or not, the two of them will not occupy the spots in the middle house. The remaining 1,000 people will be qualified to enter the middle house. The people ranked 1001 and 1002 nearly burst into tears. They thought that they were unlucky enough to fail in the ranking. However, they did not expect the situation to change. This was really something to celebrate. After returning to the waterside pavilion of the lower house, President He and the group of lecturers began to discuss the matter between Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru. The focus of the discussion was whether their results counted or not. Chapter 57:28 was about to come into being in the meeting hall of the lower house. After President He told them what had happened, the atmosphere was a little strange. All the lecturers looked at each other in dismay. They had never thought that someone would buy a flag during the exam. In order to prevent people from snatching the flag, they had specially designed a special flag. Only the first person to get the flag would show their name, but they had never thought that someone would use spirit stones to buy the flag to take advantage of the loophole. After a moment, the crowd began to express their opinions. Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru's actions are blatant cheating. They must not be tolerated. Not only must their results be cancelled, but they must also be expelled from the academy. That's right. This kind of opportunistic behavior is too arrogant and must be severely punished. But the academy's rules do not explicitly prohibit this kind of behavior. It is a little unjustified. There's one more point that everyone might have forgotten. Other than the two main culprits, Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru, there are also thousands of people who participated in this matter. They are also accomplices. If we want to deal with them, this incident will affect too much. Everyone was arguing non-stop. President, he felt like his head was going to explode. This Yan Qingqing was always able to give him difficult problems. He might as well just shove her directly into the upper house so that she would not cause trouble for him again. President He's heart suddenly stirred. That's right, he could just leave this hot potato to the upper house and let them decide. After all, Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru would be going to the upper house in the end. President He was immediately delighted. Everyone, I already know your opinions. I will summarize your opinions and feedback them to the upper house. As for whether Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru are admitted or not, let the upper house decide. Everyone silently gave President He a thumbs up. Impressive. Truly impressive. As expected of the President He walked out of the meeting hall. Before he even reached the entrance of the lower house, he saw a familiar figure in the distance. Who else could it be but Yan Qingqing? President He wondered in his heart. Why was she here? Could it be that she had already thought of him going to the upper house? She was almost a demon. At this moment, He Xinjiu ran over and asked, President, are you going to the upper house? President He snapped, so what if I am? Oh, He Xinjiu looked around and said in a low voice, President, let's talk in private. I have something important to tell you. President He said impatiently, let's talk about it when I come back. It will be too late by the time yo. Forget it, I'll talk to you here. Are you going to let the upper academy decide the matter between Ding Wenru and me? He Xinjiu blinked and asked. President He said unhappily, so what if I am? President He, you will definitely regret it if you do this. President He snorted coldly, regret? If you went to the upper house to talk about it now, how do you think the upper house would react? There were only two scenarios. One was to confirm Ding Wenru and PS results and admit us. The other was to invalidate our results and make us drop out of school. No matter which scenario it was, the lower house and you would become a laughingstock. You would become a target for some people in the upper house to attack you in the future, because Ding Wenru and I are your dear students. As the saying goes, if you don't study hard, you will be blamed for our mistakes. That's why you must not go to the upper house. As the saying goes, one must not spread one's dirty laundry. If we quietly turn a big issue into a small one, it will be over. Why do we have to go to the upper house and make a fool of ourselves? Chapter 5729. I seek death for them. President He frowned and thought about it carefully. He felt that what Yun Chujio said was not without reason. He had thought things too simply. Many people in the upper house were eyeing the post of the president of the lower house covetously. They even wanted to cause some trouble for no reason. If they really brought this matter to the upper house, it would indeed be somewhat inappropriate. While President He was deep in thought, He Xinjiu said with a smile, President He, actually, why are you in such a difficult position? Just let me and Ding Wenru go to the upper house directly. Anyway, you are doing things according to the rules. No one can find fault with you. If someone finds fault with you, will you let them point out which rules in the rules forbid you from buying flags? When the two of us go to the upper house, the ones who will have a headache are those people from the upper house. After all, we entered the exam in broad daylight. What else can they do to us? Moreover, we are your dear students. If we succeed, you will also be proud, right? If we are cheated and expelled, how could you bear to do that? President He's expression changed a few times. Apparently, he had not made up his mind on what to do. Hei Shinjio pursed her lips and said with a sobbing voice, "President, actually, I have no choice. If I don't go to the upper house to keep an eye on Brother Beiyu, he might be kidnapped by some flirtatious bitch. I'm your biological student, and Brother Beiyu is your biological student's son-in-law. Do you have the heart to see us being separated from each other?" President, he gritted his teeth. "All right, they'll give you two the right to enter the upper house directly. However, if the upper house has any objections, there's nothing I can do." Yun Chujio immediately broke into a smile. "It's fine as long as you give us the right. If the people from the upper house cause any trouble, I'll kill them." President, he. Actually, it was good to let this guy go to the upper house. At least, it would give those guys a headache. Why was he the only one who had a headache? In order to avoid a long delay, after the final decision was announced the next morning, President He directly led the two people to the upper house. President He's mood was quite complicated. He could imagine the reactions of the people from the upper house when they saw these two guys. Hei Shinjio came over and said, "President, explain the situation to me when you arrive at the upper house. Then, turn around and leave. Leave the rest to me." Naturally, President He could not ask for more. He nodded and agreed immediately. Hei Shinjio blinked and said, "President, please tell me who is your sworn enemy in the upper house." President He glared at her and said, "Don't talk nonsense. We are all colleagues. There is no sworn enemy. If you can stay in the upper house, you should focus on your cultivation. You should know that the upper house has its own assessment system. If you are ranked behind, you will be sent back to the middle house. Oh, you too will probably be sent back to the lower house. That will be even more embarrassing." Hei Shinjio pursed her lips in her heart, but she still replied obediently, "We will definitely remember your teachings. If you need us in the future, please feel free to instruct us, President. We will go through fire and water without hesitation." Although President He felt that it was impossible for him to use her for any help, he was more or less touched by her words. He sighed. The students of the upper house are all favored by the heavens, and many of them have powerful backgrounds. Don't make too much trouble when you get to the upper house, or you might not be able to save yourself. President, you know me well. I have always been obedient and sensible. I'm a good student who follows the rules. I won't cause any trouble, Hei Shinjio said very naturally. President He. Chapter 5730 was all bought as they spoke. The ship had already docked at the pier of the upper house's waterside pavilion. President He brought Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru off the ship. After the guards checked their identities, they entered the upper house. As soon as they entered, they met President Hua of the middle house. The students who had passed the examination in the middle house also had to go through the admission procedures today, so President Hua came over early as well. President Hua saw President He and cupped his fists from afar. President He, what a coincidence. Are you here to take care of business in the upper house? President He's face stiffened slightly. He pointed at Hei Shinjio and Ding Wenru behind him and said unnaturally, "There are two students in our lower house who meet the requirements to be directly promoted to the upper house, so I brought them here to go through the admission procedures." Since President He had issued a gag order, the news of Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru buying flags had not spread. Therefore, President Hua was shocked immediately. His eyes fell on Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru, and his expression became a little strange. One was at the 9th level of Spirit Extinguisher, and the other was at the 3rd level of Divine Enlightenment? What a joke! With such cultivation, they could not even enter the middle house, let alone the upper house. President He, are you kidding me? President He's face became even stiffer. He said vaguely, "They have obtained very high points in the exam, and their points are the same. Therefore, according to the Academy's rules, they meet the conditions to enter the upper house." President Hua felt that there must be something fishy going on, but seeing that President He didn't want to say more, he didn't ask further. Anyway, he would know the truth when he got to the enrollment formalities. Behind President Hua stood many students from the Central Academy. They were among the top 100 students in the Central Academy's entrance exam and had obtained the right to enter the Upper Academy. They looked at Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru with eyes full of suspicion and disdain. These two had actually been promoted from the lower academy to the upper academy. How is this possible? President He and President Hua chatted as they walked and quickly arrived at the registration area. The admission of new students was a major event. Therefore, other than Manager Yang, who was in charge of the registration, the other branches of the upper house each sent a vice-chancellor to oversee the registration. Yun Chujio knew 4 of them. Among them, she had met Vice-Chancellor Dongfang, Vice-Chancellor Mu, and Vice-Chancellor Duanmu when they went to the lower house to give lectures. She had met Vice-Chancellor Duanmu in particular when they were in the Chongshao continent. There was also an old acquaintance, which was Vice-Chancellor Xiao. In addition to these 4 people, there were also 2 old men. Everyone saw President Hua and President He stand up to greet each other. While Vice-Chancellor Xiao was greeting each other, the corner of his eyes fell on Yun Chujio, and a trace of sternness flashed across his eyes. After greeting each other, President He remembered what Yun Chujio had said before. He spoke to Manager Yang, who was handling the admission procedures. First, Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru from the lower house have tied for the first place in the grand examination. They are also 13,000 points higher than the second place, so they are eligible to enter the upper house directly. This is the certificate. I still have something to do in the lower house. Goodbye. After saying that, President He left as if he was flying. Even President Hua's shouts from behind did not stop him. Instead, he walked even faster, looking as if he was fleeing in a panic. Everyone. Manager Yang, who had gone through the admission procedures, looked at the certificate in his hand and was immediately dumbfounded. Because the remarks below clearly stated the reason why Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru had obtained such a huge amount of points, their flags were all bought. Chapter 5731. Innocence. Vice President Duanmu, who was standing beside Manager Yang, saw his stiff face and went over to take a look. He was petrified. The other vice presidents also went over to take a look. Even Director Hua had the cheek to squeeze over to take a look. Then they were petrified. No wonder President He had run away in a hurry. So that was the reason. Vice President Xiao snorted coldly. This is outrageous. This is obviously cheating. And you still want to enter the upper house? Such a person is not worthy to be a student of our 10 Directions Academy. He should be expelled. Ding Wenru was shocked. It was over. This time, she was afraid that she would lose everything. However, Yun Chujio said indifferently, Vice President Xiao, I can understand that you hold a grudge against me because of the incident in Thunder Valley. But now, you are using your official position to seek personal revenge. Isn't this a little too much? How did I cheat? Which school rule of the academy says that you are not allowed to buy flags? If you find out the school rule, I will immediately withdraw from the school. Good, very good, I will find it for you now. After saying that, Director Xiaofu took out several school rules. Some of them were from the upper house, the middle house, the lower house, and the 6 branches of the upper house. After going through them for 13 times, he still couldn't find any rule that forbade the use of spirit stones to buy flags. This was awkward. Director Ziafa's face was ashen. Even if there are no school rules, you are still taking advantage of the situation. You don't deserve to enter the upper house. Send them back to the lower house. The freshman who had just entered the upper house immediately revealed gloating expressions. Hey, these 2 trash still wanted to enter the upper house like them? What wishful thinking. In particular, some of the girls recognized Yun Chujio. After all, because of the incident with Bei Yu, He Xinjia's portrait had spread throughout the 3 houses, and she had become the public enemy of the majority of the girls. If this Yan Qingqing were to enter the upper house, wouldn't it be more convenient for her and Bei Yu to be intimate with each other? They definitely could not let her enter the upper house. Yun Chujio sneered, Vice Director Xiaofu, this upper house is not your place. There are still 5 vice-chancellors here. Do you think that you can make the decision on their behalf? Or do you think you are superior to others and have a higher status than others? Director Xiaofu felt the dissatisfaction in the eyes of the other 5 deputy directors and almost died from anger. This crafty girl was actually trying to sow discord. It was really He quickly apologized to the other 5 people. Everyone, I didn't mean that. I was just angered by the shameless actions of these 2 students. I was a little reckless for a moment. Please forgive me. The other 5 vice-chancellors naturally wouldn't really fall out. As for what they were thinking, no one knew. Manager Yang looked troubled. Vice-chancellors, are these 2 students going to accept them or return to the lower house? The vice-chancellors looked at each other and cursed President He in their hearts. No wonder he ran away faster than a rabbit. It turned out that he had already expected such a scene. He was too cunning. What should they do now? At this moment, Yun Chujio bowed and said, Vice-chancellors, the loophole in buying the flag is because the rules are not perfect. It should not be us who bear the consequences. As the saying goes, one cannot be a square without rules. Since Ding Wenru and I have met the admission requirements, according to the rules, we are students of the upper house. If we are sent back to the lower house, won't the rules of the academy become a piece of empty paper? It will become a big joke. I believe that the 6 vice-chancellors are sensible teachers who respect the rules. They will definitely give us 2 innocent students a fair treatment. Chapter 5732. President Gu, who was reprimanded, the corners of everyone's eyes twitched violently. Innocent and innocent? Are you sure you didn't misunderstand the meaning of these words? Did someone use a knife to force you to use spirit stones to buy a flag? And you're innocent and innocent? Shameless. Vice Director Duanmu and the others paid attention to the words, be reasonable and respect the rules. From what she said, if they weren't allowed to enter the upper house, wouldn't they be unreasonable and not respect the rules? Vice-Chancellor Xiao said with a gloomy face, no matter how she talks, the results of the 2 of them are not above board. Everyone, I suggest that we send them back to the lower house. The other 5 vice-chancellors also felt that Yun Chujio, Ding Wenru and the others were just opportunistic and did not have the qualifications to enter the upper house. However, they took advantage of the loophole and were in a dilemma. Vice-Chancellor Duanmu pondered for a moment and said, since we can't make a decision, why don't we report this matter to President Gu? What do you all think? The others immediately nodded in agreement. They had finally thrown this hot potato out. Immediately, Vice-Chancellor Duanmu took out his identity jade token and reported the matter to President Gu. On the other side, President Gu was in the back mountain of the upper house, getting scolded. President Gu stood there like a quail. In front of him stood 2 old men. One of the tall old men pointed at President Gus's nose and cursed angrily. As the president of the upper house of the 10-Directional Academy and the president of the 10-Directional Academy, you don't even know that your shadow guard has been switched. Is that a pig's brain on your neck? If Eboxian hadn't happened to find that corpse, PM afraid that you wouldn't even know that your head has been chopped off. You are so careless. If the disaster came, wouldn't the 10 Directions Academy be destroyed by your hands? You really make me so angry. President Gu was reprimanded like a grandson. He kept wiping the cold sweat on his head and didn't dare to say a word to refute himself. It was his fault that the people who scolded him couldn't be provoked. All right, everyone has their moments of carelessness. Moreover, those shadow guards rarely show their faces, so it's not strange that he didn't notice. Since it has already happened, it's useless to scold him. We are going into seclusion soon, so you'd better talk to him about some serious matters. The short elder advised. The tall elder glared at President Gu and then said, after we go into seclusion, you have to pay close attention to the situation of Tao Tai's seal. But there's no need to interfere. What should come will come eventually. The students of the academy had been living too comfortably these years. If disaster really came, it would be useless. Find an opportunity to throw them into the 6 Directions Waterside Pavilion and let them experience it. President Gu was suddenly shocked. He mumbled, the 6 Directions Waterside Pavilion is connected to the seal of Tao Tai. Many of the monsters in it have been contaminated by the fierce aura of Tao Tai. Even the lecturers may not be able to escape unscathed. If the students were to go to the 6 Directions Waterside Pavilion to train, I'm afraid. Humph. What do you know? Only when they are in a life-and-death situation can their fighting spirit and potential be stimulated. Otherwise, What's the use of raising a bunch of little sheep? The tall old man rebuked angrily. President Gu shrunk his neck and didn't dare to speak anymore. All right, we are going into closed-door cultivation. If it's not an emergency, don't disturb us. Scram back. The tall old man said snappily. President Gu politely bowed and took his leave. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and realized that his identity jade tablet had been trembling nonstop. He hadn't noticed it earlier. When he heard the news inside, his first reaction was to send the person back to the lower house. However, when he heard the names of the two students, he changed his mind. Which branch did chapter 5733 go to? Yan Qingqing? When President he had given him the corpse, he had told him that it was a student named Yan Qingqing who had fished up the corpse. If not for the fact that she had fished up the corpse, it would not have taken long for the corpse to be devoured by the sea beasts. He would not have been able to discover that one of his shadow guards had been swapped out. Speaking of which, he should be thanking Yan Qingqing instead. Thinking of this, President Gu replied, "The responsibility for this incident lies with the academy and has nothing to do with the two of them. Since they meet the conditions to enter the upper house, let's handle it according to the established procedures." Vice-Chancellor Duanmu repeated President Gu's reply. Although Vice-Chancellor Xiao was so angry that he gritted his teeth, it was already a done deal. There was nothing he could do about it. He Xinjiu was naturally very happy. If it wasn't for President Gu Y's miraculous stroke, she would have to spend a lot of effort to convince him to stay. This fellow had labeled President Gu as a good person, in his heart. Manager Yang saw that the matter had been settled and began to handle the admission procedures for Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru. However, there was another problem. The middle and upper houses of the 10 Directions Academy were set up according to the principles of spiritual power, pill refinement, talisman seal, beast taming, array formation, and artifact refining. Therefore, after the students of the middle house were admitted to the upper house, they could directly enter the corresponding branches. However, the lower house was set up according to the spirit root branch. So which of the 6 branches should these two students enter? Manager Yang turned to look at the 6 vice-chancellors. Vice-chancellors, which branch should these two students enter? The 6 chancellors looked at each other, and Vice-Chancellor's Mu of the beast-taming branch hurriedly expressed his stance. Our beast-taming branch has a higher requirement for cultivation, and the two of them don't quite meet it. Vice-Chancellor Dongfang of the Talisman Division also hurriedly said, "The two of them have fire spirit roots, so it's not suitable for them to enter our Talisman Division." Vice-Chancellor Duanmu, "I think your Alchemy Division is more suitable." Vice-Chancellor Duanmu of the Alchemy Division glared at him and said, "Alchemy requires talent. It's more suitable for the two of them to go to the Spirit Power Division." Vice-Chancellor Xiao snorted, "Our spirit faculty doesn't want trash." Almost instantly, the 6 vice-chancellors expressed their unwillingness to take over Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru. The situation immediately beckoned. So what if they took advantage of the situation to enter the upper faculty? No faculty was willing to accept them. They deserved it. Manager Yang looked troubled. The 6 branches were not willing to accept them. What was he supposed to do? He looked at Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru sympathetically. He thought to himself, these 2 students were just looking for trouble. It would be great if they were studying in the lower house, but they had to come to the upper house to be tortured. But now, none of the branches were willing to accept them. They were so pitiful and pitiful. Yun Chujio sighed. Manager Yang, are there no other branches apart from the 6 major branches? Why don't you just set up a separate branch for the 2 of us to avoid being despised by others? The moment Yun Chujio's words left her mouth, it immediately attracted a wave of boos. How shameless! Who does she think she is? She even set up a separate branch for them? Why doesn't she go to heaven? That's right, if I were them, I would quickly scram back to the lower house to avoid embarrassing myself. Since no branch is willing to take them in, I guess they can only scram back to the lower house. Actually, they can also do odd jobs in the upper house instead of going back to the lower house. Chapter 5734, The Primal Division Manager Yang seemed to have thought of something and his eyes lit up. He looked at the 6 vice-chancellors and said, "Everyone, actually, our upper academy has another division besides the 6 major divisions." Vice-Chancellor Duanmu blurted out, "Are you talking about the Primal Division?" Vice-Chancellor Dongfang clapped his hands and said, "That's right, there's the Primal Division. The Primal Division has the lowest requirements for people. I think it's most suitable for the 2 of them to enter the Primal Division." When the other chancellors saw this, they immediately understood what Deputy Chancellor Dongfang was thinking. As the saying goes, if a fellow Taoist doesn't die, then this poor Taoist will die. Whichever branch that accepts these 2 good-for-nothings would be a disaster. It would be most suitable for them to be sent to the Primal Chaos branch. Thus, they immediately agreed. That's right. These 2 students have strange bones and extraordinary talent. One look and you can tell that they are good seedlings of the Primal Chaos branch. Let's assign them to the Primal Chaos branch. Even Vice Director Xiaofu agreed. That's right. They are indeed suitable to go to the Primal Division. Ding Wenru uneasily tugged on Yun Chujia's sleeve. Even a fool could tell that the so-called Primal Division was definitely not a good place to go. Yun Chujio did not have any reaction. Her goal was to enter the upper academy to find the recipe for alchemy and talismans. It did not matter which division she went to, as long as she could enter the library pavilion. Moreover, no matter which branch she was in, it would not hinder her and the pretty boy from being intimate with each other. Therefore, this fellow did not care about going to the prehistoric branch. Although Manager Yang had already made up his mind, he still pretended to ask, "Yan Qingqing, Ding Wenru, are you willing to enter the prehistoric branch?" Yun Chujio immediately nodded and said, "Since all the chancellors think that we are suitable to enter the prehistoric branch, we are naturally willing." "Thank you, vice-chancellors." Vice-chancellors Duanmu and the others immediately looked a little uncomfortable, and they felt guilty for bullying the little girl. Yun Chujio pretended not to see it and said happily, "Manager Yang, please quickly go through the procedures for us so that we can report to the prehistoric branch as soon as possible." Manager Yang's conscience was also a little painful, but he was also very helpless. The 6 branches were not willing to accept them. It was already very good that he could help them find a place to stay. Therefore, Manager Yang quickly finished the admission procedures for the 2 of them. Manager Yang's subordinates spent a lot of effort to find 4 sets of the prehistoric branch's academy uniform in a corner, 2 sets for each person to change into. Manager Yang handed the academy uniform and other items to Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru and coughed dryly. "Most people don't know the location of the prehistoric branch. I have already marked it on the map for you. You can follow the map to find it." Ding Wenru felt a chill in her heart when she heard what he said. Most people don't know the location of the prehistoric branch? What did this mean? It meant that the prehistoric branch had not recruited students for many years. Perhaps the 2 of them were really the only ones in the prehistoric branch. Yun Chujio did not mind it at all. She thanked them with a smile and bowed to Vice Director Duanmu and the others before leaving. Vice Director Duanmu shook his head. "Aren't we going too far? They are just 2 little girls, and the prehistoric institution is..." Vice Director Xiaofu said snappily, "Stop pretending. Let me ask you, if you don't have the heart, let them enter your alchemy institution." Vice Director Duanmu immediately changed the topic. "About that, I didn't say anything just now." What a joke. The 6 great divisions always had to rank in each assessment. If they had 2 more useless students, wouldn't their alchemy division be dragged down? Chapter 5735 glittered with golden light as soon as they left the registration area. Ding Wenru said with a bitter face, "Qingqing, the primeval institution is definitely not a good place to go. What should we do? Since we're already here, let's just take it easy. Let's go and take a look first," Yun Chujio said indifferently. Seeing her so calm, Ding Wenru's originally anxious mood also calmed down a little. Forget it. Anyway, she only needed to cling tightly to Qingcheng's thigh. She could trust Qingcheng and obtain eternal life. The 2 of them searched for a while according to the map, and finally saw a dilapidated small courtyard between the alchemy branch and the talisman seal branch. The plaque at the door was covered in dust. Only the word, desolate, could be vaguely seen in the 4 words, primal branch. The other 3 words were completely covered in dust. Ding Wenru's heart instantly turned cold. Qingqing, this is the desolate branch? How can such a small courtyard be called a branch? Also, look at the plaque. It's covered in dust. Clearly, no one has entered for many years. What's the difference between US and being exiled? Yun Chujio had long expected this and was not too surprised. Although the place was small, it looked like there were only her and Ding Wenru. It was just convenient for her to mess around. She looked around and found a few people wearing the uniform of handymen who had just come out of the alchemy division. She immediately waved her hand and shouted, "Hey, please come over here." The handymen didn't understand, but they still walked over. "This student, is there something you want to talk to us about?" "Help us clean this courtyard," Yun Chujio said with a smile. The few odd job workers looked at each other. The person who spoke earlier said, "I'm sorry. We are all obeying orders. Unless it's arranged by the supervisor, we cannot do things privately. Moreover, this courtyard has been abandoned for many years. Why bother to clean it up? After a period of time, it will still be covered in dust. It won't be abandoned in the future. The 2 of US will be students of this prehistoric branch in the future," Yun Chujio said with a faint smile. The odd job workers were stunned for a moment. Were these 2 people from the prehistoric branch? What a joke! Hadn't the prehistoric branch been abandoned all this time? They looked at Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru's academy uniforms carefully and realized that their academy uniforms were different from the academy uniforms of the 6 major branches. Was what they said true? Why did these 2 students choose the prehistoric branch out of the blue? Looking at their cultivation levels, they immediately had a guess. Could it be that they were not liked and were sent to the prehistoric branch? The servants' faces immediately showed some contempt. The person who spoke earlier said, "Sorry, we can't help without the manager's permission. Besides, we are very busy and don't have time. Goodbye." Yun Chujio curled her lips. 2,000 high-grade spirit stones per person. Do you have the time now? Yes. Time is like water in cotton. You'll have it after squeezing a little. That's right, that's right. No matter how busy we are, we won't take too long. This student, you can just wait by the side. We'll start working now. That's right, it's not that we're boasting, but among the odd job workers in the upper house, we're the most diligent and capable. I guarantee that we'll clean up this courtyard for you too. Ding Wenru was speechless. As expected, money could make the devil turn the millstone. The speed at which these people changed their faces was too fast. However, Qingqing was really rich. She had spent so many spirit stones to buy the flag before, and now she was actually so rich and overbearing. As expected, she was hugging onto those big, shiny legs. Chapter 5736 was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. The commotion soon attracted the attention of some students from the Alchemy Division and the Talisman Seal Division. After all, the Primeval Academy was in the middle of the 2 divisions. Immediately, some students came over to watch. When they saw the academy uniforms on Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru, they could not help but point and point. Didn't the Primeval Academy say that it would not recruit students for a few years? Why were there 2 new students all of a sudden? When someone recognized Yan Qingqing, the crowd immediately exploded. Isn't she Bei Ye's sweetheart, that Yan Qingqing? She actually entered the upper house? It's really her. How shameless, she actually chased him to the upper house. She's simply a piece of dog skin plaster. I think Bei Yu must have used some unspeakable means to get her. Bah, Bei Yu was only bewitched by her for a moment. She has no appearance, no cultivation, so what right does she have to make Bei Yu like her? At this time, Xiao Lianqiao just happened to walk out of the alchemy division. When she heard Yan Qingqing's name, her face immediately sank. What? Yan Qingqing actually entered the upper house. How is this possible? Yan Qingqing was an audit student of the lower house. Even if she was lucky, she could only enter the middle house. How could she possibly enter the upper house? She must have heard wrongly. At this time, Jia Chuyun, who had always been on good terms with her, came over and said, "Lian Xiao, my cousin is from the middle house." This time, she entered the upper house. She just sent me a message saying that this Yen Qingqing and her follower used spirit stones to buy a lot of flags during the big exam. The two of them tied for first place, and their points were much higher than the third place. That's why they entered the upper house. Tao Yenner, who was beside her, said in disbelief, "Isn't this cheating? The academy actually allowed such a person to enter the upper house? Isn't this too ridiculous?" Jia Qiuyun curled her lips. "I heard that they originally didn't want to take them in, but President Gu said that this was the responsibility of a loophole in the rules and had nothing to do with them, so he left them behind." The funny thing was that the 6 branches didn't want them. In the end, they were sent to the primeval branch and left to fend for themselves. When Xiao Lianxiao heard Jia Qiyun's words, a flash of viciousness flashed in her eyes. It wasn't a bad thing to let Yen Qingqing and the others enter the upper house. Previously, Yen Qingqing was in the lower house and she couldn't do anything about it. Since she came to her own doorstep, she would naturally treat her well. Now, she didn't need to do anything. She just needed to spread the tea. Naturally, there would be people who disliked her. In addition, there were only the 2 of them in the primal division. It would be easy to deal with them. Just as Xiao Lianxiao was thinking about it, someone exclaimed, "Bei Yu is here." She raised her head and saw Bei Yu slowly walking over. Although he was just walking normally, he forcefully surpassed all the boys around him. Some people were born to be the center of attention, even if he did not do anything. He Xinjiu also heard the crowd's exclamations. She turned her head and saw that it was really a certain someone. She immediately pounced on him like a swallow. "Brother Bei Yu, we can be together every day from now on." A faint smile appeared on the certain someone's indifferent face. He stroked her hair with a hint of indulgence. The faces of the girls present were filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. They wished they could push Yun Chujio away and replace her. They had never seen such a gentle side of Bei Yu, but it just so happened that the person he was gentle with was that damn Yen Qingqing. Chapter 5737 Scold him to death. Ding Wenru watched from the side as she lit a candle in her heart for He Xinjiu. These upper house girls were much crazier than those in the lower house. King Cheng's days in the future would probably be difficult to endure. The jealousy in Xiao Lianqiu's heart spread like poisonous weeds. She felt that if she continued to watch, she would definitely not be able to resist and directly kill Yen Qingqing. She definitely could not let the 2 of them have a chance to be alone together. Otherwise, Bei Yu would definitely be even more bewitched by that shameless Yen Qingqing. When she thought of this, she took out Deputy Director Xiophus' voice transmission talisman and said a few words. A moment later, Di Baiming's identity jade token started to tremble. After he sent his divine sense in, he could not help but frown and said to Yun Chujio, "The lecturer is looking for me for something. I'll look for you later." He Xinjiu didn't mind. Since she was already in the upper house, she had plenty of opportunities to flirt with the gigolo. Hence, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed a certain someone's face. "I'll wait for you." The girls instantly exploded. This Yen Qingqing was too shameless. She actually dared to tease Bei Yu in public. This pervert. This woman, pervert, wolf. This flower, infatuated. A certain someone resisted the urge to kiss her and turned around to leave. Xiao Lianxiao gave Jia Qiuyun a look. Jia Qiuyun immediately understood and said in a strange tone, "Everyone, you probably don't know, right? The reason why Yen Qingqing and her lackey were able to enter the upper house was because they spent money to buy a flag during the big exam. The 6 branches didn't want such a depraved student, so they sent them to the primeval branch." Everyone was shocked at first, then they exploded again. They pointed at Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru. They were just short of throwing rotten eggs and rotten vegetable leaves. Ding Wenru finally understood why Qin Linglong and Gu Lieni didn't come to the upper house with them. With their thin skin, they would probably cry themselves to death. She was different. Although she wasn't as thick-skinned as Qingqing, she wasn't an ordinary person. Just treat these people as dogs barking. On the other side, after President Gu returned to his courtyard to settle some matters, Manager Yang came in with the list of new students and information to report. Students were the foundation of the academy, so President Gu attached great importance to the admission of every new student. Although he would not personally come, he would still check the qualifications and situation of the new students. He took the materials that Manager Yang handed over and flipped through them. When he saw the last page, his hand trembled and almost dropped the materials in his hand on the table. President Gus's face was filled with shock. Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru have been arranged to enter the prehistoric branch? Manager Yang did not know what President Gu was thinking. He did not dare to make things up. He told him everything that had happened. President, the 6 branches are not willing to accept the 2 of them, and they can't send them back to the lower house, so they can only arrange for the 2 of them to enter the prehistoric branch. Although the primal division has been abandoned for many years and doesn't have a lecturer, the 2 of them can go to other branches to get some classes, and they won't drag down any of the branches. This can be considered to be the best of both worlds. President Gu smiled bitterly, thinking to himself, who said that the primal division didn't have a lecturer? Were those 2 at the back of the mountain ghosts? Hee, everyone thought that the primal division had been down and out, and that was why there had been no students. How could they know that the primal division had been unable to recruit students because they had extremely high requirements for students? If those 2 who were in closed-door cultivation knew that the primal chaos branch had taken in 2 good-for-nothings, would they scold him to death? Chapter 5738. Manager Yang saw the bitter smile on President Gus's face and asked carefully, President Gu, is there anything wrong? President Gu had a hard time saying it. The 2 people at the back of the mountain had been in seclusion for many years. Even the chancellors did not know about their existence, so it was not appropriate for him to say it out loud to Manager Yang. He thought about it again. The 2 people had already gone into seclusion. This seclusion might take 3 to 5 years, or it might take 8 to 10 years. By then, Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru would have already graduated. Even if they were angry, they could not do anything about it. Moreover, Yan Qingqing and Ding Wenru's cultivation was so low, and the upper house's assessment was very strict. They might even be sent back to the lower house. President Gu thought about it, and his originally worried heart was relieved. He said to Manager Yang lightly, It's okay. The prehistoric branch is currently unmanaged. You should take care of the 2 of them. On the other side, the students surrounding Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru had already dispersed. Anyway, there was still plenty of time in the future. There would be plenty of opportunities to laugh at these 2 good-for-nothings in the future. Yun Chujio did not care about this at all. She took out her chair and played 5-piece chess with Ding Wenru to kill time. This fellow felt that playing 5-piece chess with Ding Wenru was simply too confident. It was much better than being tortured by a gigolo. A gigolo was simply inhuman. The efficiency of the few odd-job workers was very high. In addition, the courtyard of the primal institution was not too big. In less than 2 hours, it was completely cleaned up. Satisfied, Yun Chujio gave the promised spirit stones to the odd-job workers, and she gave each of them an extra 100 spirit stones. The odd-job workers could not help but be overjoyed. Before they left, they said politely, Student Yen, if you need us to do anything in the future, just let us know. We will definitely be on call. Ding Wenru rolled her eyes in her heart. Sure enough, money could make the devil push the millstone. Besides a small courtyard, there was only a row of bungalows in the primeval subdivision. Qingqing, why do you think the primeval subdivision is so miserable? There are only a few bungalows. At the very least, there should be a meeting hall or something like that. In any case, it's just the 2 of us, so be it. Yun Chujio was very satisfied. No matter the size, it was fine as long as she was comfortable. The 2 of them made arrangements for a few rooms. The bedroom, study, living room, dining room, and even a small kitchen were all ready. Ding Wenru grinned. Qingqing, don't tell me. With this place seems to be our home. Home. Yun Chujio's originally high-spirited mood suddenly became a little depressed. Her parents were still in the custody of the Zen sect. For her now, The 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall was a behemoth that she could not afford to provoke. She was afraid that she still had a long way to go before she could save her parents. Seeing this, Ding Wenru knew that her words might have touched Yun Chujie's heartbreak. She quickly changed the topic. Qingqing, now that we are in the upper house, you will be able to be intimate with your brother Beiyu in the future. Don't worry. When your big brother Beiyu comes, I will be tactful and go out for a walk. I won't disturb you at all. Ha. Hei Xinjiu knew that Ding Wenru had said that on purpose, but she still played along and joked a little. She was not a self-pitying person to begin with. She would never give up no matter how great the difficulties and obstacles were. If not for her personality, she would have collapsed long ago when she found out that she had a heavenly thunder spiritual root, which was not tolerated by the Tian Dao. The sky had already turned dark when the two of them were so busy. Hei Xinjiu frowned. The pretty boy said that he would come to visit her when he came back from the lecturer's office. Why did he not come? Chapter 5739. Just as Yun Chujio was thinking, the voice transmission talisman vibrated and a voice came from inside. I just came back from Instructor Zheng's place. The academy has a rule that no one is allowed to go out beyond the hour of Wu. I will come to find you after class tomorrow. Yun Chujio did not care too much. There was still a long way to go, so she replied with a smile, Okay, see you tomorrow. Come, give me a kiss. After a long while, a faint HM came from the voice transmission rune. Hei Xinjiu curled her lips. What a tsundra! The next day, Hei Xinjiu slept until the sun was high in the sky. She stretched herself and walked out of the room. Ding Wenru heard the noise and walked out of the room as well. She asked, Qingqing, you're up? I just remembered something. The primeval institution doesn't seem to have any lecturers. What about our classes in the future? That's easy. We can get the schedules of the other branches, and we can pick those who are interested to join our classes. Not only can we learn something, but we also don't have to finish our homework. It's so wonderful. Hei Xinjiu said smugly. Ding Wenru's eyes lit up, but soon she said worriedly, Will the other branches not allow us to join their classes? After all, we are not students of the other branches. Yes, no. I spent so many spirit stones to buy a flag, I can't let it go to waste. I'll get Mo Lao-san to get us the class schedule right away. Mo Lao-san was one of the odd job workers from yesterday, and he had more prestige among those odd job workers. Yun Chujio used her identity jade token to send a message to Mo Lao-san, and in less than 2 hours, Mo Lao-san came over eagerly. Student Yen, this is the schedule for each grade of the 6 major branches. Although Mo Lao-san was only a handyman, his information was more well-informed than some students. After all, these handymen worked in various places, so they had more sources of information. Yun Chujio was very satisfied. She gave Mo Lao-san 2,000 upper-grade spirit stones and sent him away. Yun Chujio glanced at the schedule and then asked Ding Wenru, Which branch are you going to take lessons from? Ding Wenru said a little embarrassedly, I want to learn how to refine weapons. Yun Chujio, all right, this was a good match for her figure. Something like swinging a sledgehammer was very suitable for her. Today's class for the new students of the refining branch is in the afternoon. You can cultivate in the prehistoric branch while I go to the spiritual energy branch for a stroll. After all, I'm a very studious person. Ding Wenru rolled her eyes. If she wanted to see Beiyu, she could just say it out loud. Studious my ass. Hei Xinjiu had been to the spiritual energy faculty once before, so she arrived. As this fellow had gotten up relatively late, the spiritual energy faculty was already in class, so this fellow sneaked into the teaching hall. There were not many students in the teaching hall. After all, the number of students in the upper house was much smaller than the number of students in the lower house. The lecturer on the stage was none other than Instructor Zheng, whom Beiyu had mentioned in the voice transmission talisman yesterday. He did not know Yun Chujio. When he saw Yun Chujio sneaking in, he immediately rebuked her angrily. That student, stop right there. Why are you late? Don't you know that I hate it when students are late? Yun Chujio immediately became the focus of attention. Everyone's gaze fell on her. Someone immediately recognized her and gloated, "Instructor Zheng, she's not a student of our spirit power faculty. She's Yan Qingqing from the primeval faculty." Primeval faculty? Yan Qingqing? Instructor Zheng was a direct descendant of Director Xiaofu, so he naturally knew about the grudge between Director Xiaofu and Yan Qingqing. His face immediately darkened. Chapter 5740. The only two students, Yan Qingqing. Since you're a student of the Primal Division, why did you come to our Spiritual Energy Division's teaching hall? Instructor Zheng coldly rebuked. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. Because PM diligent and eager to learn. Everyone. If you have the ability to say these words, don't stare straight at Beiyu. If you have the ability to say these words, don't shamelessly squeeze next to Beiyu. Instructor Zheng slammed the table. Get out. Our spirit energy faculty doesn't allow students from other faculties to listen in. He Xinjiu ignored Instructor Zheng. This fellow had already squeezed to Di Baiming's side. Due to Di Baiming's alienating aura, both sides were empty. He Xinjiu sat directly on Di Baiming's right, and even playfully winked at Di Baiming. Yan Qingqing, didn't you hear what I said? Our spirit faculty doesn't allow bystanders. Get out now. If not, I can only ask the guards to chase you out. Instructor Zheng said angrily. Yun Chujio glanced at him, then moved to Di Baiming's side and kissed him on the cheek. Only then did she stand up. If you don't want to listen, then don't listen. What are you arguing about? Brother Beiyu, I'm leaving. Remember to look for me after class. A certain someone nodded his head with some helplessness and doting. He really did not understand why Yun Chujio came over. Could it be that she just wanted to draw a circle of hatred? Instructor Zheng was so angry that he was twitching. There had never been any arrogant students in the upper house. It was really too much. They had to be severely punished. He thought of several ways to severely punish them in his heart. However, he suddenly thought of something. There were no lecturers in the prehistoric branch, let alone the chancellor. Who was he going to complain to? He Xinjiu had thought of this long ago. Although she and Ding Wenru were poor in exile, it meant that no one could control them directly. She came to the spiritual power branch to test the tolerance of the academy toward her. After leaving the spiritual power branch, this guy did not go to other branches, but went to President Gus' courtyard. In his heart, this guy had already labeled President Gu as a good person. Since he was a good person, he had to make the best use of everything. He had to hug President Gu's thigh properly. President Gu was not someone that anyone could meet. As soon as this guy arrived at the entrance of President Gus' courtyard, he was stopped by the guards. This guy spoke a lot of good words, but the guards were not moved. Yun Chujio nodded. Brothers guards, you really can't be promiscuous with your wealth and power. I really admire you. Since you won't let me in, then PLL wait here for President Gu. Everyone was willing to listen to good war. Although it was their duty not to let Yun Chujio in, they did not chase her away when they saw her sitting on a small horse nearby and waiting for the rabbit. At this moment, an old man's voice came from inside. Let her in. Yes, President. A cunning look flashed across Yun Chujio's eyes. President Gu was not deaf, so he could naturally hear the noises outside. She had said a lot of sincere praises to him just now. He Xinjiu was brought into President Gus' courtyard by a guard. The courtyard was not luxurious, but it was very spacious. From this point, one could see some clues about President Gus' character. He was calm and open-minded. The guard brought Yun Chujio to President Gus' study and then left. Yun Chujio bowed respectfully. The only second student of the prehistoric branch, Yan Qingqing, greets President Gu. President Gu. Chapter 5741. You can leave now, President Gu said calmly. Take a seat. President Gu sized up Yun Chujio as he spoke. The little girl in front of him had a delicate and pretty face. She was not outstanding, but her eyes were like a clear spring, crafty and smart. As for her cultivation, well, it was better not to mention it. He Xinjiu followed the good advice and sat on a chair at the side. However, she did not sit down casually. She only sat half of her butt on the chair, showing her respect. President Gu naturally noticed this as well. His eyes flashed. This little girl was really smart. Why are you looking for me? President Gu asked indifferently. Yun Chujio immediately stood up and bowed again. President, I am here to thank you for giving Ding Wenru and me the opportunity to enter the upper house to study. If it wasn't for you, we might not have been able to stay in the upper house. I will remember your great kindness in my heart. From now on, you will be my savior, Yan Qingqing. I will go through fire and water for you. President Gu might not have asked a student to do anything for him, but He Xinjia's words were quite pleasing to his ears. However, he did not show any expression on his face. He said calmly, since you have fulfilled the rules of entering the upper house, you should be admitted into the upper house. There's no need to thank me. If you came here to express your gratitude, you can go back. President, actually, I came here for some other things. Our prehistoric branch doesn't have a lecturer, so naturally, there's no one to teach us. Can Ding Wenru and I go to other branches to freeload? Yun Chujio asked earnestly. President Gu felt that this was a reasonable request. He couldn't let the two of them fend for themselves, right? Thus, he nodded. Of course, you can go to any of the 6 branches to get free lessons. However, there is one thing that you must abide by the rules of each branch. If you cause trouble, you will be severely punished. Yun Chujio immediately said happily, Yes, President. Don't worry, I don't dare to guarantee anything about Ding Wenru. I will definitely be obedient. I have always followed the rules. I have always been a good student with excellent character and learning. President Gu recalled some rumors about this little girl in front of him, and the corner of his mouth twitched. A good student who was obedient would spend spirit stones to buy a flag? He was lying. In order to cover up his loss of composure, President Gu casually asked, Are you good at any of the 6 skills of cultivators? Yun Chujio bared her little white teeth, counted with her fingers, and said, I am not good at many things. I am only good at alchemy, talisman making, and beast controlling. My spiritual power is also passable, but array formation and artifact making are not good. I only know a little about them. President Gu, you can leave now. The subtext in his heart was to get as far away as possible. He was simply boasting shamelessly. He really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Even the 2 people at the back of the mountain didn't dare to say such big words like her. The reason why the primeval subdivision hadn't been able to recruit students was because they had extremely high requirements for students. In addition to spiritual power, they had to be proficient in at least 2 spells. However, this was too difficult. A person's energy and talent were limited. It was already very difficult to master 1 spell, but it was even more difficult to master 2. This Yan Qingqing actually boasted shamelessly that she was proficient in 3 spells, and that she also had some understanding of array formations and refining. This was simply a bunch of nonsense. He Xinjiao blinked her eyes. She could roughly guess President Gu Wei's thoughts and said pitifully, Well, President, you must remember to inform the 6 branches about your free time. If I'm kicked out, he'll come here and cry. Chapter 5742. The Primeval Academy was not simple. President Gu was speechless as he looked at the pitiful He Xinjiao. He had been the dean for many years and had met countless students. No matter how strong the students' backgrounds were, in front of him, there was no one who was as relaxed as this Yan Qingqing. Although she appeared to be very respectful and even sat on the empty seat, he could see that this little girl was not afraid of him at all. She did not have any fear because he was the dean of the 10 Directions Academy. It did not seem like she was facing someone in a high position, but more like a junior who was acting coquettishly and hitting her elders. President Gu had never taken a wife in his entire life. His family members were few and far between. This was the first time he had experienced the feeling of a junior acting coquettishly and hitting her in front of him. To be honest, although it was a little strange, he did not dislike it. Although his emotions were complicated, he did not show it on his face. He said lightly, I will send an order immediately. You and Ding Wenru can go and join the class. Also, let me emphasize one thing. Although no one from the Primeval Institution will restrain you for the time being, I will not forgive anyone who complains to me. Do you understand? Hei Shinjio blinked her eyes. President, why did I listen to you? Will there be a lecturer in the primeval institution teaching us in the future? Didn't they say that the primeval institution has been abandoned for many years? President Gu did not expect Yun Chujio to be so sharp that she had caught the flaw in his words. Naturally, he could not tell her about the two people in the back mountain, but he could not say that there were no lecturers in the primeval institution. He coughed and said, "Don't ask so many questions. In short, it's your honor to be able to enter the primeval institution with Ding Wenru. Don't disgrace the title of the primeval institution." Hei Shinjio was so smart. He sensed something unusual from President Gus' words. This guy tactfully did not ask any more questions. Instead, he straightened his back and said, "President, don't worry. Since I'm a student of the primeval institution, I will naturally protect the reputation of the primeval institution. I will definitely not tarnish the reputation of the primeval institution." President Gu naturally would not believe her nonsense. Putting everything else aside, her cultivation was so low that it would not take long for her to be sent back to the lower house. After Hei Shinjio left President Gus' courtyard, her black eyes rolled around. It seemed that the prehistoric institution wasn't simple. However, it made sense. The name of the prehistoric institution was much more imposing than the alchemy institution or the beast-taming institution. How could it be simple? However, how powerful was this prehistoric institution? After Hei Shinjio returned to the prehistoric institution, she told Ding Wenru that President Gu had agreed to let them skip classes. Ding Wenru gave her a thumbs up. "Qingqing, you're really amazing. All right, I'm going to the weapon refining institution to skip classes this afternoon. Do you want to go with me?" Yun Chujio shook her head. "I'm not interested in weapon refining. Besides, if I go, I'll be drawing hatred for you. You should go by yourself." "But are you afraid?" Ding Wenru pouted. "I'm afraid? Isn't it just sarcasm? It was so difficult in ascending Heaven Dock, and I survived. Why should I be afraid of them gossiping? Just treat it as a dog barking." Yun Chujio was very satisfied with Ding Wenru's thick skin. Birds of a feather flocked together. She and Ding Wenru were indeed a perfect match. Hei Shinjio suddenly felt very hungry. She could not wait to go to the canteen to get some food. She cursed in her heart. It must be Red Claw. Her spirit stones were going to suffer again. Raising a foodie was really a long story. Chapter 5743. Can you understand what I'm saying? Hei Shinjio immediately released her red claw and threw a pile of spirit stones on the ground. She snapped, "Eat! I'll eat you to death." Ding Wenru was dumbfounded. What was wrong with Qingqing? Was she crazy? What nonsense was she talking about? However, in the next moment, her knowledge was refreshed. That red claw actually pounced into the pile of spiritual stones, and those spiritual stones were decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ding Wenru felt that her whole body was in a bad state. Was there something wrong with her eyes, or was she lacking in knowledge? Which spiritual beast could directly devour spiritual stones? This was simply beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. She must have not slept well last night and had hallucinated. Ding Wenru was still in a daze when she heard Hei Shinjio say, "Sister Ding, let's go to the courtyard for lunch. PM's starving." Ding Wenru pinched herself to make sure that she was not dreaming. Then, with a stiff expression, she went into the courtyard with Yun Chujio. There was a lot of food in Yun Chujio's storage ring. She casually took out a few items and placed them on the table. Then she began to eat like a whirlwind. Ding Wenru was dumbfounded. Even though Qingqing was usually gluttonous, she did not eat much. What was going on today? Why did she look like a hungry wolf? Yun Chujio was so hungry that she felt uncomfortable. She ignored Ding Wenru. It was only after she ate 5 big bowls of rice and finished 6 plates of dishes that she burped and said, "I'm finally half full." Ding Wenru. Yun Chujio took out some more dishes and placed them on the table. This time, she ate at a much more normal speed and said, "Sister Ding, I'm not going to hide it from you. Like this because of that damn claw. However, after it ate the spirit stones, I won't be so hungry anymore. Can you understand what I'm saying? Ding Wenru, who had a dumbfounded look on her face, shook her head like a rattledrum. She could not understand it. What was going on? Yun Chujio was not surprised. Well, most people would not be able to understand. It doesn't matter if you don't understand. Anyway, if my appetite grows in the future, just don't be surprised. Ding Wenru's ability to accept things was not bad. Although she still did not quite understand it, but thinking about it, the person in front of her was a pervert. It was normal for anything to happen to a pervert. Yes, that was it. Ding Wenru came back to her senses and smelled the aroma of the food. She didn't think too much and quickly started eating. However, she would glance into the house from time to time. That red claw could eat spiritual stones. It couldn't possibly eat people too, right? Ding Wenru shivered for some reason. Sure enough, it wasn't easy to hug a thigh. It was too scary. Yun Chujio looked at her and couldn't help but laugh. She didn't point it out. This guy was a little full from eating, so he stood up and walked around the courtyard to digest his food. However, as he walked, he stopped moving. Ding Wenru didn't understand. Ching, what's wrong? Yun Chujio pointed at the wall and said, the material used for this wall is different from the wall at the entrance. This wall seems to be built from the back. She went to the other wall and looked at it. It's the same here. The walls on both sides are built from the back. Built from the back? That's normal. Didn't they say that the prehistoric branch had been abandoned for many years? I guess the wall collapsed so they rebuilt it. Ding Wenru said nonchalantly. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. No, I think it should be Geo occupying the magpie's nest. If my guess is right, the prehistoric branch used to be very big, but now it's occupied by the alchemy branch and the talisman seal branch. It's really shameless. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.